This veteran found his long-lost love after 75 years. Grab a tissue. This romance between a World War II veteran and his long-lost love spans decades and proves that time can't erase true love. K.T. Robbins is 98, but his memory is sharper than ever. It's been 75 years since he was part of the 95th Bakers Battalion, stationed in Briey, France, during the Second World War. Robbins was happily married for 70 years, but before that, he had a romance that no one knew about, not even those closest to him. The sweet secret was discovered when Linda Tosh, Robbins' neighbor, and another friend found a photo among some belongings when they were helping him sort through his late wife's things. Robbins and his wife never had children, but Tosh says that she and a few other neighbors are like his daughters. She was like, "Hey, KT, who is she?" He knew instantly, she recalls. He said, "Oh, my goodness, that's Janine Gagne." Robbins gently interrupts, "She was my first love." The unassuming start of a timeless romance. Robbins has a soft voice, and his recollection of his first meeting with Gagne brings an audible smile to his words. "We took a boat to Briey and set up our tents and mobile bakery," he says. "We baked up to 3,000 pounds of bread a day. Back then, our ingredients came in huge bags and large gallon cans. We had set some large cans of lard by the fence, and a young girl approached us with 2 little kids, her brother and sister. She said, 'Mister, can we have those cans?' I said, 'Sure, but what in the world for?' She explained that her father would use the lard and then the metal from the cans. That's how it all began. Love stories begin in all sorts of ways, as we know from real life and our favorite books. From there, a friendship, and more, grew. We became very good friends," Robbins says. "She would come visit me at the mobile bakery tent every day. Her family would invite me over to their house for meals. We loved each other. Though neither spoke the other's language fluently, Robbins says they managed well. Back then, I spoke a lot more French than I do now, and she got along pretty well with her English," he says with a laugh. A love cut short. When Robbins got word that he was being transferred to Baston, France, and would have to leave, he knew it meant the end of the courtship he cherished. "Her family had a going-away breakfast for me, it was so nice. The day I had to leave, I called her to tell her I was going. I said, 'Janine, I've got to go. I don't have time to see you,' and that's when they ripped the phone out of my hand and said there was no time for calls. That was the last time we spoke. Life goes on." Robbins met his wife by mail, as he puts it, shortly after. She was a pen pal of his who worked in the same shirt factory as his uncle, back home in Mississippi. "We had a great 70 years together," he says of his wife. "I owned a hardware store for 35 years. We had a good life." But he never forgot Gagne, who he says waited for him for 5 years before deciding that he was never coming back. She married and had 5 children with her late husband, who passed 30 years ago. Tosh says, "He often said to me, 'I sure would like to go back to France,' and I never thought much of it. One day, I saw a story online about veterans going back to Normandy, and I mentioned it to him. The trip of honor was more than Robbins could have ever dreamed. No one told me she was still alive when we went down there," he says. Finally, one of the nurses on the trip turned to me and said, "I'm going to tell you something, she's still alive." When we got to her nursing home, they had her wheelchair in the lobby. I recognized her immediately. She's still very beautiful. Robbins and Gagne looked at the photo of themselves that he had kept for all those years. Robbins told her that he loved her and that he always had. Gagne shared that she had always thought of him and hoped he would return after the war. Robbins says of the reunion, "We had 2 hours, and dinner together. When it was time to go, she got out of her wheelchair and walked with her walker to the car. We embraced there for a while. She didn't want me to go. A love that has stood the test of time." Since their first reunion, Robbins and Gagne met once more for 3 days, this time with Gagne's family. Tosh accompanied him on the trip. She says, "It was so sweet seeing them walking the same streets where they courted and at the corner where his tent and bakery once stood." For Robbins, it was a wonderfully surreal experience. "I remembered exactly where she lived, even the front door," he says. Though Robbins says he has no plans to move from Olive Branch, Mississippi, to France, he's quick to state the obvious, "I love her so much."